So now we've talked about the agenda setting effect, we've talked about priming effects, and now we're going to talk about framing effects, the third effect that we've found in research among political scientists and communication studies scholars over and over and over again. The reason I focus on these particular effects is because these have been demonstrated repeatedly in experiments. So what are framing effects? The manner in which a reporter interprets the meaning of events affects citizens' understanding of those events. Okay, so let me give you some examples, or an example. This is actually based on something that actually happened. It was a few years back, and the Ku Klux Klan wanted to hold a rally, but they wanted to hold it in Schenectady, New York, in an area that was predominantly Jewish. And as some of you probably know, the Ku Klux Klan doesn't have a very high opinion of Jews, and Jews don't have a very high opinion of the Ku Klux Klan. So I'm the owner of a TV station, a local TV station in New York, and I want to make sure that we cover this event because I know that people are hearing about it, they're interested in it, and so I send you as a reporter to cover the event. Now, let's say you aren't really thrilled about being a reporter. You actually want to be a lawyer, and this is just your side job until you can get through law school. But you take the assignment and you go down to City Hall and you're thinking, how am I going to cover this event? Well, given your interest in the law, you hit on this idea. I'm going to go and find two professors who have different views on whether the First Amendment protects the Ku Klux Klan's right to give a speech in Schenectady, New York. And so you walk around and you do a bunch of interviewing, and sure enough, you find one professor who says, absolutely, they should be able to speak. The First Amendment protects freedom of speech, and especially freedom of speech that people find obnoxious. That's the point of the First Amendment. Then you find another professor who says, look, people have the right to freedom of speech, but that doesn't mean that they have the right to give a speech wherever they want and whenever they want. They're going into Schenectady because they're trying to incite violence. They're trying to create a conflict. No, they don't have that right. And so you're like, this is fantastic. Okay, now I know I'm going to do my report. So it goes something like this. This is you reporting from Schenectady, New York. The Klan is going to be holding a rally Saturday near City Hall. The question that people are asking is, does the First Amendment protect their right to do that? Well, I interviewed Professor so-and-so, and then you show a clip of Professor so-and-so saying they can, the First Amendment does protect it. On the other hand, Professor so-and-so had a different opinion, and then you show your interview of the other professor giving his opinion on how the First Amendment doesn't protect it in that particular location. And then the camera comes back to you and you say, does the First Amendment protect freedom of speech? Well, there are different views on it, but one thing is for sure, they're holding a rally here on Saturday. This is you reporting from Schenectady, New York, and that's the end of the report. Anything wrong with that report? Yeah, I don't think so. You gave both sides of the argument. You described what's happening. So you presented your audience with an interesting question. So they probably watched it all the way through. And that's your job as a reporter. Make sure they're paying attention. Now, let's imagine I pick somebody else to be another one of my reporters. And I say, I want you to cover it, the report. So you covered yours on Thursday, now I want one on Friday before the rally. And so I pick somebody else. I say, I want you to go do a report on the rally. Now this person knows you've already done yours. Yours used a free speech frame. And what I mean by that is you framed your story around freedom of speech. Well, this particular person who's a reporter for me doesn't want to be a reporter. Nobody who works for me apparently wants to be a reporter. And so instead what they do is they're thinking, you know what, I don't want to talk in terms of freedom of speech. What everybody's going to be really wondering is it going to be safe? Is there going to be violence? And so what they decide to do is they're going to interview somebody from the Klan, the leader of the rally. They're going to interview a leader from the Jewish community, and then they're going to interview the chief of police and see what the chief of police has to say. They're going to use a public safety frame. They are going to frame their story around the question of, is the public going to be safe? And so their report looks something like this. This is so-and-so reporting from Schenectady, New York. The Klan is going to be holding a rally here on Saturday in front of City Hall. And this has people wondering whether or not there's going to be violence. I spoke with the leader of the Klan, and he said, and then you have an interview of the leader of the Klan saying, we won't be frightened away. We're going to be there. We're going to say our piece. This is America. We have a right to say what we want to say. They interview then you show your interview. You said, but then the leaders of the Jewish community, some of the leaders of the Jewish community take a very different view. And so you interview somebody from the Jewish community and they say, I don't want those people bringing their garbage in here. If they're going to come here and talk this kind of stuff, we're going to stop them from doing it. And then you go to your interview of the chief of police and he says, I know that there are strong feelings about this, but our job is to make sure that the public is safe. So while I recognize, we all recognize that there are strong emotions here, we're going to make sure that this is safe. So if people want to come to the rally, they come, but if you don't like what they have to say, don't come. But there won't be any violence. After you're done with your showing the interview of the chief of police, it comes back to you, you say, well, the one thing for sure is going to happen, there's going to be a rally in front of City Hall and the Ku Klux Klan is leading it. The question is there going to be violence? Well, we won't know until Saturday happens. This is so-and-so reporting from Schenectady, New York. Is there anything wrong with that report? I would suggest that there isn't. I mean, I think that what the reporter is trying to do is give information and keep their audience interested, because that's really the goal, is to keep your audience interested. And so they're going to go ahead and they've done a report that showed both sides and included the chief of police. The difference in these two reports is the first one was interpreted using a free speech frame. So the reporter, in that case it was you, interpreted the meaning of events as, being about freedom of speech. In the second report, it was interpreted as being a question about whether or not the public was going to be safe. Well, how does this tie into media effects? Suppose you were just watching TV. Now you're not the reporter. Now you're somebody in the community, and you've just finished watching the news report with this free speech frame, or it could be the public safety frame, either one. You just finished watching the report and your roommate comes in, or your brother or sister, or your parent walks in, or your kid, and they see the very end of it where they're talking about the rally and they go, hey man, I just heard about this rally that's happening on Saturday. What's going on? If you were going to explain to them what was happening on Saturday and you just saw the free speech frame, wouldn't you explain it to them in terms of freedom of speech? Yeah, apparently the rally is going to happen on Saturday and there's a question about whether or not they should be allowed to speak. People have different opinions. If you just saw the public safety frame, wouldn't you describe what was happening in terms of public safety? If that's the report you just saw? Right, I'm not going to do any more of my PowerPoint presentation, so you're safe, don't worry about it. But why would you describe it in terms of freedom of speech if you saw the free speech frame? Because that's what would be at the top of your head. And why would you describe it in terms of public safety? Because if you just saw the public safety frame, because that's what would be at the top of your head. This is the power of the media. Media can't tell you how to think. They can't tell you whether you think the Klan should be able to speak or not be able to speak. They can't tell you whether you should think that it's going to be safe or it's not going to be safe, but they can shape what you're thinking about. about. And that's where the power of the media comes in. Now I'm going to do one more short video on framing to follow this. I'm going to focus on a particular kind of framing, and then we're going to move on to partisan bias, my favorite topic.